Jiggly Japanese cheesecake. Learn to master this Japanese classic dish in your own home. Get ready to whip a lot of egg whites to create this exciting jiggly texture, as well as layer in flavors like cream cheese. A typical jiggly cake serves 6 people, and the ingredients are 7 tablespoons of butter, 4 ounces of cream cheese, a half a cup of milk, 8 egg yolks, 1/4 cup of flour, 1/4 cup of cornstarch, 13 large egg whites, 2/3 cup granulated sugar, hot water for baking, powdered sugar for serving, and optional, 1 pint strawberries for serving. The typical preparation of a jiggly cake is to preheat the oven to 320 degrees Fahrenheit or 160 degrees Celsius. In a small pot over medium heat, whisk together the butter, cream cheese, and milk until melted and smooth. Remove from the heat and let cool. In a large bowl, whisk the egg yolks until smooth, then slowly drizzle in the cream cheese mixture, stirring until evenly combined. Sift in the flour and the cornstarch, whisking to make sure there are no lumps. In another large bowl, beat the egg whites with a hand mixer until soft peaks form. Gradually add the sugar while continuing to beat until stiff peaks form. Fold about 1/4 of the egg whites into the yolk mixture, then repeat with the remaining egg whites until the batter is evenly combined. Grease the bottom of a 9 by 3 inch or 23 by 7.5 centimeter round cake pan. Then, line the bottom and sides with parchment paper. If using a springform pan, make sure to wrap the bottom and sides completely in foil twice to prevent any leakage. Pour the batter into the pan and shake to release any large air bubbles. Place the pan into a larger baking dish lined with 2 paper towels at the bottom. The paper towels ensure that the heat is distributed evenly along the bottom of the pan. Fill the larger pan about 1 inch or 2 centimeters high with the hot water. Bake for 25 minutes, then reduce the heat to 285 degrees Fahrenheit or 140 degrees Celsius, and bake for another 55 minutes, until the cake has risen to almost double its original height. Remove from the oven and carefully invert the cake onto your dominant hand and peel off the paper. Be extra careful, the cake will be hot. You can also invert the cake onto a plate, but this will cause the cake to deflate more. Dust the top of the cake with powdered sugar, then slice and serve with strawberries while still warm, and enjoy. Some information about jiggly cakes. This light and fluffy mousse-like form, affectionately known as fua-fua in Japanese onomatopoeia, is typical of the cheesecake varieties native to Japan. While nothing about cheesecake may seem typically Japanese, dairy, cake, it's a modern staple in cafes, bakeries, pastries, specialty shops, convenience stores, and dessert menus across Japan. Several cheesecake tart chains like Bake and Pablo are renowned for attracting around-the-block lines for their stores, both nationally and internationally. Also known as the Japanese souffle cake, the Japanese souffle cheesecake is a baked variety, but it differs from a traditional New York-style cheesecake by incorporating a margarine egg white batter into the cream cheese mixture, which is cooked in a bain-marie to produce a soft, chiffon-like consistency. It may or may not have a molten center, depending on the cooking time, and is also sometimes topped with a smear of apricot jam. Japan also has its own take on the Western unbaked cheesecake, known as rare cheesecake. This version uses a setting agent, like agar-agar or gelatin, and a base of cream cheese and yogurt rather than cream, giving it a sour tang. To reach this point of distinction and global following, Japanese cheesecake traversed the globe, went through many iterations, and overcame challenges in culinary predispositions. Its history is therefore relatively brief. Around 40 years, considering the cheesecake's history of over 2,000 years. The oldest record of cheesecake is accredited to the writer Athenaeus in 230 AD, but records from as far back as 776 BC note it being fed to players of the Olympic Games to provide stamina for their tired bodies. Archaeological findings show this version as cheesecake made from flour, wheat, honey, and cheese, and was more of a pudding-style number. Romans spread the Greek cheesecake across Europe, with the modern baking-style cheesecake thought to have its origins in medieval Poland, and was a mixture of cottage cheese, cream pastry, light fermented raw milk, and fresh cheeses. Polish immigrants took this cake with them to the US. Then, after the invention of cream cheese in New York in 1872, cheesecake recipes featuring cream cheese began to appear. Meanwhile, in Japan, the recently established Meiji government was encouraging the adoption of foreign foods, with a recipe book published in 1873, making the first mention of cheesecake, albeit a mixture of cheese and rice rather than a Western-regarded cake. But as traditional Japanese palates of the time found cheese particularly noisome, the cake was not readily adopted. It wasn't until the post-war period when American forces stationed in Japan had brought with them American-baked cheesecake, along with other foreign flavors and foods, that tastes started to evolve. During the early Showa period, soft cottage cheese and cream cheeses were introduced to Japan, and began appearing as a novel ingredient in traditional confectionery, which grew in consumption with the introduction of electric refrigerators in the home during the 1950s, and slowly the Japanese partiality for cheese and cheese-based desserts followed. Commercial pioneers of cheesecake in Japan appeared in the 1960s on a trip to Berlin in 1969. Tomataro Kuzuno, owner of Kobe's Mozarov, encountered a local Kaiskuchen cheesecake, a German variant, and was so enamored that he decided it needed to be made available back in his home country. Rikuro Oji-san in Osaka was among the first chains serving up the characteristic wobbly, airy, souffle-style Japanese cheesecake. During the 1970s, women's magazines featured cheesecake, catalyzed a boom in the cake's popularity across the country. In the late 1980s, more desserts featured cheese like tiramisu, and cheese-filled steam buns began to appear and solidify in the place of cheese in Japanese cuisine. Since the 1990s, the appetite for and availability of cheesecake has been widespread across Japan. Another Jiggly cake recipe by author Kat Liu yields 6 to 8 people. The prep time is 20 minutes, the cook time is 70 minutes, and the total time is 90 minutes. Make a foolproof Japanese cheesecake with me that jiggles and bounces. A Japanese cheesecake is also known as a Japanese cotton cheesecake or a Japanese souffle cheesecake. Ingredients: egg white margarine, stiff peaks, 5 egg whites, 1/4 teaspoon cream of tartar, or vinegar or lemon juice, 1/4 cup or 50 grams fine granulated sugar, not confectioner's sugar. For the cake batter you will need 5 egg yolks, 8 ounces of cream cheese, 1/4 cup of butter, 1/2 cup of milk, 1/4 cup of fine granulated sugar, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, which is the magic ingredient, and 1/4 cup of flour. Optional toppings are strawberries, confectioner's sugar, fruits of your choice, honey, matcha powder, and more. As you saw while watching this video, there are many different ways that you can create this type of cake. Even Cadbury has its own type of Jiggly cake. You can make these cakes using chocolate as well. Confectionery artists have gone through the time to make creations out of their Jiggly cakes, such as bees and guitars, as well as Cadbury cream eggs. So what are you waiting for? Go ahead and make your own Jiggly cake. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe.